Namaste and heartfelt gratitude to all of you to come here on this cold, chilly winter morning. Yet the place is such that it draws us all towards it. And that is what we are going to also now read from one of the prayers of the Mother, where she has talked of places, spaces, times, and above all she says, in spite of any space, any time, thou art everywhere. The prayer, chosen prayer, is a prayer written by the Mother on March 14, 1914. It is a short prayer, but it talks about one of the fundamental truths of spirituality. Thou art everywhere. Where art thou not? He is everywhere, indeed, the divine is everywhere. March 14, 1914. In the immutable solitude of the desert, there is something of thy majestic presence, and I understand why one of the best means of finding thee has always been to withdraw into these immense stretches of sand. But for one who knows thee, thou art everywhere, in all things, and none of them seems more suitable than another for manifesting thee. For all things that exist and many others that yet do not are necessary to express thee. Each thing, by virtue of thy divine intervention of love, is an effort of life towards thee. And as soon as our eyes are unsealed, we perceive this effort constantly. O Lord, my heart is athirst for thee, and my thought seeks for thee constantly. In a mute adoration, I bow to thee. This is an interesting prayer. In fact, in the first week of March, the Mother left her country of birth, France, on to a voyage to India for a month-long voyage, believing that she would not return. Of course, she returned, and then in 1914, she landed for the first time in Pondicherry, but then she returned after about a year or so, and then she came back permanently to stay there in 1920, April 24th. So the prayers of the Mother from March 3rd, if we look at the prayers and meditations, the prayers written in March, if one reads them, it is very interesting. It shows a trajectory. The Mother is preparing for the voyage. And is she only preparing for herself? It becomes very evident as one goes through these prayers in March. March 3rd, while she is preparing for this month-long journey to India, towards India, and where she is actually going to meet the Divine Master, and they will create a tapobhumi, a Ved bhumi, for their own tapasya. So, and while she is preparing, and on the day of the departure, before even she is preparing, she is praying for all. She is praying for even the material things that she is leaving behind. And while she is departing, setting on the voyage, she is identifying herself with the sufferings of the people whom she is leaving behind. She is not talking about her suffering. She is only identifying with the suffering and praying for them. And as days go by, as she embarks on this journey, we see that she starts invoking peace and calm for all whom she has left behind, for all who are accompanying her on this journey. And as it moves forward, it becomes very evident that the mother is praying for the entire creation, because for the great event to take place. This is a preparatory stage. Not only for her, she is very enlightened even at this stage, but her prayers, they stem for the entire creation, for what is about to come, for the space that is going to be now created, for the sadhana. So her prayers in the beginning, it reconciles the sufferings of the people, then it talks about peace, and then it talks about intervention of love and raising the consciousness towards what is, and towards the later part, prayers of aspiration, intense aspiration, almost becoming like a blank page to meet the Lord. So while she's penning down these prayers, there is a fundamental truth of spirituality that she brings about in this prayer, that indeed the divine is everywhere and in everything. And she is about to land in the place of her destiny. And as Alokda, very interestingly in one of his talks, he said, can the divine also have a place of destiny? And yes, indeed, it is the chosen place of the master and the mother. So these two facts, that the divine is everywhere and she's talking about a space that is now, she's embarking on a journey, these are actually not two contradictory truths. The divine is everywhere. And there are spaces which are needed, which help in, you can say, expediting the process of sadhana. We will talk about it. So, indeed, the divine is everywhere. And while she is about to reach Pondicherry, only 14 days are left now. While she is about to reach Pondicherry, she gets into a very interesting state. And perhaps everybody should get into this kind of a state, even when we are approaching either Pondicherry or any kind of tapobhumi where the great masters have done their sadhana, where they have left behind their vibrations, and these vibrations stay forever. So Pondicherry is indeed a special place. In fact, it has been endorsed by the mother that once you are in Pondicherry, within a 10-kilometer radius, you breathe in she says, you breathe in my atmosphere. The air is so rich over there. Around the Samadhi, I'm sure those who have been to the Samadhi, the moment and this kind of a physical presence, this effect that the divine is there, around this Samadhi, when you start moving out, when you go out, Amit is also sitting over here, and I had a talk with him earlier also, that as you move out from the Samadhi, you feel that urge of going back. And there have been times when I have actually gone back. I've just crossed the road and I've gone back. And this has happened n number of times, not one time. But we don't realize it unless we leave that place. We don't realize that how it has gotten to But the mother here is saying that, is it only that if you move away from that place, there is no divine presence? Not at all. The divine is present everywhere. And as you move further and further, it goes into the mental, it goes into the vital field, it goes into the mental field. Even when you are in a crowd, in a crowded place, you can feel it in the spiritual consciousness, that presence. So what is important is to carry the divine in your heart and feel the presence everywhere. Yet, the divine is everywhere, yet there are physical spots, there are physical spaces created by the great masters where they do their tapasya. So the vibrations always stay there. And these become the tirthasthals. So, but if one starts staying in these tirthasthals and thinking that that is all, and is not in contact with the divine within, then life will become actually very uncomfortable. But if you have the divine anywhere, in your heart, at all times, then you carry Pondicherry, you carry the presence everywhere. There are people who don't stay in the ashram, yet they are doing intense sadhana. There are people who have not even heard of the mother and Sri Aurobindo, yet they are doing their sadhana. So it is indeed the divine grace, the divine is present everywhere, in everything. Also, apart from the places, there are certain timings in nature. The sunset, the sunrise, and the Godhuli Vela, where we feel very close to the divine. These are timings where you feel that stillness and calmness, and we are able to invoke the divine and also get in touch with that divine presence very easily. So, these are auspicious, one may say, but they are actually favorable moments of time. There are also places. We have all grown up reading about, a hermitage in a dense forest, then, caves in the high slopes of the Himalayas, long stretches of sand, and a hut by the side of a limpid river. So we have all grown, and yes, these are indeed places where one can feel the presence, divine presence, and as the mother is talking about here, in fact, this ashram also, what brings you to the ashram? It is this presence that you want to feel, that calming effect that you have. So there are spaces, there are spots in nature also, and the mother is talking about one such place. As the ship is passing by the deserts of Egypt, she has penned down this prayer. She's talking about the desert, where one feels an unchanging solitude. She used the word immutable solitude. She says in the prayer, the opening line, "In the immutable solitude of the desert, there is something of thy majestic presence, and I understand why one of the means of finding thee has always been to withdraw into these immense stretches of sand." When one reads these lines, you can visualize a pilgrim going through the forest, through the desert. There is a sense of solitude, there is a sense of calmness, and it is very intense. And in the expanses of the large expanses of the sand, this solitude that one feels is actually very nourishing for the soul. And that is why these things were recommended in the earlier days. It was not only about visiting a place and praying, the Tirthsthal, the Hajj, we have heard of the Hajj. Nowadays it has become a horror show, but in the earlier times it was like passing through the desert, passing through these long expanses of sand, so that one could get in touch with this solitude which is very nourishing for the soul. And this would help the pilgrim to go beyond the senses, something that the Kena Upanishad has propagated, something that makes the senses act. The reality is not what you perceive through the senses, but what makes you perceive through the senses, that is the reality. So one gets in direct touch with when one is in such a place where, she talks of the immutable solitude. Is it not similar to the Brahman consciousness or the universal consciousness that she's talking of here? So anywhere you can have this feeling, but there are places which facilitate this, which expedite this. So you have to actually once you are in the desert, you have to actually practically make no effort to go beyond the senses. How long can you go on staring at the sand? So, and there are no buildings, no skyscrapers, even no trees and bushes. So there are only expanses of sand. So outwardly, the environment is very still, and one would have a tendency to naturally withdraw inward, and one can experience that majestic presence very easily. So Sufi mystics have gone into the deserts. There is this famous story of Sheikh Sadi. While he is on his entourage in the desert with the court philosopher, they see a fakir who is sitting near a bush and eating gruel and singing verily very happy. So the court philosopher approaches him and he tells the king, he's such a fool. He is eating gruel in this desert. Had he come to you, the king of the place, had he come to you, you would have showered your blessings on him, you would have given him riches, he would not have any need to eat gruel in this lonely, deserted place. He's a fool. And then the fakir looks at him and he says, why do you call me a fool? He says, if you had come to the king, you would not be eating gruel. Then the fakir says, you are a bigger fool. If you knew that you can find happiness in these expanses of sand and can enjoy eating gruel, you would not have to do stupid things like pleasing the king and doing sycophancy. So, this is one story. Then the mother goes on to say in the prayer. Now, one has to also think that this, though the mother is talking about this, and though we know that there are places and all, but for the traveler on the path of integral yoga, is any preference for an exclusive, favorable surrounding be good? It can be good for the old otherworldly yogas, where the aim is nirvana or moksha, or at the most finding peace and going within. But for the one who has taken to integral yoga, this yoga, Sri Aurobindo's yoga, the mother's yoga, is in every arena of life. It is a yoga of life. And the emotional, intellectual, physical permutations and combinations of life are so numerous, they are so many, that at any stage, the sadhak, the one who is following this path, can get dazzled, can get bewildered, can get, you can say, puzzled by what is happening. And often it is seen that even the things which seem to us very right and very, you can say, good, as we would call it in quotes, that this is something that we should be doing, helping others, altruism, doing good to others, making a sacrifice. But even for the person who is on this integral yoga path, even those can be traps. Because even in altruism, even in sacrifice, even in renunciation, there can be a very, very subtle form of ego that takes place. And indeed, there is a story of an old sadhak in Pondicherry, Parichandji. And in his earlier days, he was a very self-centered person. This has been narrated by him. He was a very self-centered person, and when he joined the ashram, he wanted to atone for this. He wanted to do away with this self-centeredness. And he was imbibed into the ashram by the mother. And in those days, the sadhaks had to take the permission of the mother and do the work which the mother told them to do. And without her permission, they were not allowed to take on any new work. So, in the same house that Parichandji was staying, there was an inmate, and he fell ill. And Parichandji, because he wanted to serve, he believed in service and helping and all those things, so he started nursing this person in the night. In the daytime, he would do the work which the mother gave, and the night he would nurse. After a few days, he started feeling very uncomfortable, and he wrote to the mother. And the mother immediately asked him to stop nursing the sadhak. She says, illnesses in the sadhaks are because of wrong movements, and you need to concentrate on your sadhana. That is why you have come to this place. And she says, all you needed to do was to inform me, and I would have taken care of the illness that your inmate is going through. So even the most seemingly right actions can be a trap. If we have this, if in our heart, if within the core of our own self, we have this, that the divine is everywhere in everything, till this is actually internalized very deeply in us, the ego sense does prevail, and it does make you do things which may seem very right to you, which may upright. Why did Parichandji not inform the mother? He thought, for such a good deed, mother is not going to say anything. In fact, she might praise me. So this was the attitude. So the mother goes on to say in the prayer, but for the one who knows thee, this is very important, but for the one who knows thee, thou art everywhere, in all things, and none of them seems more suitable than another for manifesting thee, for all things that exist and many others that yet do not are necessary to express thee. Now here she is using everywhere. So this is the fundamental truth of spirituality, that the divine is indeed everywhere. She goes on to say, each thing by virtue of thy divine intervention of love is an effort of life towards thee, and as soon as our eyes are unsealed, we perceive this constantly. Means when the awakening has come, unsealed, the awakened one, who is an awakened one? Buddha was also awakened one, though he sat under the Bodhi tree, and it is not awakening. Sitting under the Bodhi tree and getting that flashes of, enlightenment is not. He was an awakened soul. In everything he saw the divine. The awakened soul, the awakened one is one who sees the divine everywhere. So that we have to reach that kind of a stage. Now, here, when we are reading this passage, here one is wonderstruck by the similarity of the mother's approach to yoga and Sri Aurobindo's yoga. The paragraph seems like an elucidation of Sri Aurobindo's dictum, all life is yoga. And the mother reveals that the divine love has manifested in the creation and all its objects, not one thing or this thing or that thing, in all its. So the divine intervention of love is there in everything, material, immaterial, everything. So, and it is an entire creation. So, and all of them are striving to express the divine presence. So, therefore, no location, no occupation is less favorable or more favorable for the divine realization. Since all life is a continuous yoga, and all inclusive, all comprehensive, and a very Catholic outlook of life is needed. So, the all existing, all the things which exist, and all the things that are yet to come into existence will be needed to manifest the full glory of the Lord. If one thinks that, okay, we are very satisfied with the things that are existing and we try to transform them only, no. There are many things. It's a continuous yoga. So there will be many things which have not yet come into existence, but they will come into existence. And here, does she not reconcile the fact that, okay, the divine is everywhere, but then what is not existing while the mother is over here in this journey? The creation of the Tirthsthal in Pondicherry is yet to. It is not yet in existence, but it will come into existence. So there are many things which are needed to manifest the full glory of the Lord. And one cannot be satisfied with what one is and tries. So one has to believe in this continuous process of the yoga and take forward and be ready to accept any kind of change, any kind of things that are needed, any kind of changes or transformations which may come along the way. If we get stuck only to this is my process, my yoga, I need to do this, I need to sit in a particular place, I need to follow, I need to go to these tirthsthals to see and feel the divine, and every time I am having an urge, every time I am disturbed, I need to go to a Varanasi or I need to go to Jagannath Puri. But one has to let go of all these things. And this one can let go only believing with certitude that the divine is everywhere and sees the divine in everything, every place, all time, whether it is material or immaterial, in every vibration, in every situation of life. For the one who knows this, even in the darkest, in the densest of situations, in the worst possible situations, one knows that there is the divine working. And each thing by virtue of this, she says, each thing by virtue of thy divine intervention of love is an effort of life towards thee. And as soon as our eyes are unsealed, we perceive this constantly. And we would start perceiving this in every situation, good, bad, ugly, every situation. So what is required? How does one reach this stage? In the next part, the mother will reveal that thirst for the divine, deep thirst for knowing the divine is there. So what is important is this thirst for the divine. What in the darkest and the densest and gloomy situations, what do? We rave and rant, we cry, we lament, we curse. Instead of that, if we look at the situation that we are in, and can't we say, oh, you talk to the divine and say, oh, you are hiding somewhere? Come on, show yourself to me. Show me your smile. Show me the play. Instead, we do just the reverse. And once you realize that it is the divine who is working through every situation, everything, the divine is trying to, he is always there with us. And even in the situations which seem to us like there is no hope, if one has this faith, they say, it is very subtle, but if one has this faith that there is something that the Lord wants me to know about myself, how am I dealing with it, and the Lord is trying to reveal himself, okay, and also the belief that the Lord, the mother, is never going to leave you. The situation, she may have brought you to a situation where you need to let go of many things, but she will not let go of you. She will not make herself, unavailable to you. She is always there. She's constantly there, pulling you out of everything. So with this faith, if we look at it, and how this state is achieved, we have to have that thirst. And once we realize, when we have this thirst, everything that we need will come to us. The mother will make us aware of her love working for the entire creation. And once we are in touch with this intervention of love in everything, in every object, in every situation, in every vibration, then there is no stopping. Then what we get is joy. And that is the fringe benefit. Of course, the aim of this yoga is transformation of matter. And creation has to be transformed. But the ultimate power is love. Once we relate to that and we see that love existing everywhere, in everything, then everything will be, the whole process of this integral yoga would become joyful. We would be free of any kind of turmoils. She ends this prayer in a mute adoration. I bow to thee. Mute, undisturbed, quiet, with so much of faith. She's not questioning. She has utter faith that divine is everywhere and the divine will reveal what is needed. And the divine will prevail. So in a mute adoration, appreciation, acknowledgement, I bow to thee. Gratitude, I bow to thee. In a mute adoration, I bow to thee. Let us read this prayer once more. In the immutable solitude of the desert, immutable, unchanging. In the immutable solitude of the desert, there is something of thy majestic presence. And I understand why one of the best means of finding thee has always been to withdraw into these immense stretches of sand. Here one gets a feeling of going beyond the senses. When one is in such a place, one can go much beyond the senses. This is Ken Upanishad. Mother, of course, she did not use this word. But for one who knows thee, thou art everywhere. Isha Upanishad. The Lord behind everything. You're there. But for one who knows thee, thou art everywhere, in all things, and none of them seems more suitable than another for manifesting. So everything can manifest. Everything is striving to manifest the divine. Not this, that, not what is going to come, not what is existing. Everything. For all things that exist, and many others that yet do not, are necessary to express thee. Each thing, by virtue of thy divine intervention of love, is an effort of life towards thee. And as soon as our eyes are unsealed, we perceive this effort constantly. O Lord, my heart is athirst for thee, and my thought seeks for thee constantly. In a mute adoration, I bow to thee.